Alright guys, and welcome to Discs 2 Part 2 of the Xenogears enemy tier list. Hope you guys enjoyed the first part. If you haven't seen it already, go feel free to check out Part 1, and we shall rock and roll. When last we left, our heroes and team had destroyed Solaris, or rather it had, but Ramses in his Omni gear had chased down Faye and Ellie, shooting the Weltall out of the sky and leaving them critically injured, thus setting the stage for Discs 2. Hopefully you guys enjoy this, and without further ado, here we go. So, the start of Disc 2. A bunch of easy but cinematic boss fights coming up. The beginning of our pseudo boss rush starts off right where we left off. The Vendetta. Now this time we face the Vendetta, Faye has a supreme advantage. Weltall 2 is unveiled, and this is its coming out party. The Vendetta looks menacing and can dish out a good amount of damage, but unless you're just playing around, you will easily defeat the Vendetta in just a few turns. Give this fight an A for showing off Weltall so well after the setup with how OP Vendetta is shown to be. Next one is against the Solaris Mobile Supremacy Weapon, Faint Hurricane. This one's more like a playable cutscene that's equal parts funny and badass. It's awesome to see the huge city complex come together with the Yggdrasil and form what is basically the STF-1 a la Robotech. It's also ridiculous given the absolute scale of things that need to be going on. I'd love it if there was a regular sized gear around for comparison. For Solaris, the Faint Hurricane is a beast of a machine. I absolutely love its design. The many edges and shapes it can assume remind me a little of the liquid metal T-1000 Terminator. I love all its different attacks and animations the devs put into this. This one gets an S from me from just sheer audacity. Next up is the G elements. So I actually made a whole video on this G elements transformation in a Super Sentai, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers kind of deal. But suffice it to say, this whole sequence is extremely impressive, and the boss fight itself is actually kind of fun, just because of all the different kind of configurations and other attacks that it can do. And I actually had a character die almost in this one, but to be fair, it was Rico. I'm going to give this one just another S because it's so memorable and just so awesome to see in the game. I love the way the sword falls at the end as well. Next up is Hammer's gear in Anima Relic Dungeon 2. Our old buddy Hammer. Seeing him all transformed into the man-machine fusion, that weird costume, it just kind of sucks, you know, it just hurts your heart. But he's actually one of the most interesting gears and fights in the game. His gear grows various limbs and a tail to attack with. According to Perfect Works, the gear is fueled by a person's hate or emotion, which causes it to instantly evolve and change on the spot. Very interesting concept. The fight overall is fairly easy, like damn near every fight in Disc 2. But the interesting part is, at a certain point, Hammer will glow red and begin a self-destruct sequence after a few turns. Maybe he has too much emotion surging. Some very interesting implications with that. But anyway, at this point you can either escape, which is I think the dev intended route, or you can lay on the damage. So if you got your heavy combos ready, your infinity modes, blast him and you'll get a boatload of experience and, more importantly, the trader card, which I thought was a really nice touch. Seeing the terrible thing that happened to Hammer is just like, man, this reminds you again that Xenogears is just no picnic. I'm going to give this fight an A, because I just don't feel that Hammer's storyline is as compelling as some of the others. Our next encounter is going to be with the incomplete Duus, which looks a little bit like Lavos, Husk. So, I don't like this fight, honestly. I don't like the Dead Cell looking boss design. I'm not a huge fan of the gimmick that they're trying to use, where the boss can only really damage itself and it heals every other thing. I think it's something that's kind of clever for about 5 seconds. And maybe it's something that looked good on paper, but when it gets right down to it, it just needs more time or development to make this a little bit more interesting. This one earns a D for Duus and disappointment. True Alpha Weltall. Displaying Grahf's full power, fighting at maximum, he's got the true alpha, which demolishes your party in a few turns rather easily. Now, I have heard it's possible to beat him without using any Game Shark codes, but I've never made any serious attempts at it. Also, if you have the doc in your party, you're going to be down a teammate, so you might as well have somebody else, because then you only have 2 people to face him since docs have the controls. Either way though, the story is hot and heavy, deep with lore. Various multiple plot lines begin to intersect at this point, and some close and others begin. Against the backdrop of all of this, it's pretty cool to see True Alpha Weltall's ridiculous moveset and high damage potential. I'm going to give this fight a B. Not quite as cool as when ID destroyed everything in the desert, but it is kind of cool. It's a little bit more like a playable cutscene. This one might go up or down depending on if it was rebalanced a little bit. Next we have another, well, not even a playable cutscene, but just straight up cutscene. This is Ellie versus Rattan, and I can't remember that other guy's name. Something. Anyway, a cutscene is what plays out here, but it's very dramatic. It shows all of the skill, the determination, the emotion that lies within Ellie. He's completely overmatched. There's no allies and nowhere to run, and she gets absolutely pummeled. But she's able to rally, stand up, and dish out one of the best ass whoopings there is in the entire game. It hurts seeing her get thrashed, but damn, when she gets back up and whoops those guys, I just love it. And that's another thing about Ellie's character. Whenever the situation looks hopeless, Ellie always steps up in the story. Whether it's trying to stop the shit bomb Hecht by almost sacrificing her life, saving Faith from Ramses, stopping Id, she is an awesome character. The writers did an amazing job, and this is the last time that we really get a fight with her in a way in the game. And even though she gets beat in the end, seeing her dish out that punishment is awesome. Next, we have one of the most difficult sequences of bosses in the entire game, Ramses and Emphysema. I'm not exactly sure about the pronunciation. In any case, he stands in Murakava, banging the massive knuckles together. You can tell he's on the brink of sanity at this point. I don't love the individual design of the Emphysema. The artist's note said they wanted a gear that looked intelligent, but I don't know, the original design's close to the L steer, as they note, and I just don't like the double head look so much. I think it's a bit awkward, but it's definitely bad guy material for sure. Also, I don't think this is mentioned anywhere, but I believe the Emphysema is actually Krelian's old Omni gear from when he fought in the Solaris Wars by Lacan and Sophia. I can't quite pinpoint where I got that idea from, but I think there's a scene somewhere that he has the purple gear. Anyway, in terms of gameplay, this fight has the abysmal Wave 3 Demiser attack, which is unavoidable and depletes the entire group's HP to 1. And believe me, that isn't his only trick. He comes complete with a ball-busting moveset, counter stance, and I haven't confirmed this, but I believe he's immune to Bart's Wild Smile, or at least it doesn't really make any difference when I fought him. Of course, the part that makes this fight really tough is that he's one of a 2-part boss fight. You get no healing in between. No joke, my last run of the game, he used the Demiser attack right as he died. So I went into the next fight with just 1 HP, which is the Ophiomorph. You're going to take on Miang directly for the first time in the game. And this is another fight that has the potential to be pretty tricky if you don't know what you're doing. I gotta say though, I absolutely love the design of the Ophiomorph, much more than the Emphysema. It looks stunning with the snake-like tail and upper torso. One of the most unique and cool-looking mech designs for sure. That said though, Xenogears does seem to like its snake tail mechs in this too. But now for the gameplay for this fight, I'd say As a first-time player, depending on how you came into the fight from the previous one, there's a better than likely chance you're going to game over here. Miang will let you pummel her, but her attack power, other power, defense will build each time you hit her. And it also increases when she unleashes her attacks. Well, the defense will reset, but she'll unleash a pretty devastating attack if you hit her a few times. You're going to need judicious timing, a plan, and you're going to need the right setup to stand any chance, which runs a little bit counter to the setup you need for the emphysema. It's a devious 1-2 punch that's a lot of fun to figure out. The rank for these encounters, I'm going to give them a combined S, because not only is it cool, has a lot of story around it, but it goes together awesomely. Next boss fight is taking on id himself, and absent everyone else's Xenogears. We see back to the regular gears, but it is really cool seeing the Heimdall Doxgear, let's just say, wield a sword. Now, despite that awesome intro id Xenogears has, and how awesome Xenogears itself looks, decked out in red, I kind of find the whole boss fight unnecessary. There's something about this fight, I don't know, I just feel like the party being there and fighting Xenogears doesn't add a lot to the story for me. I mean, it's nice to see them take on id, but the real battles between Faye and his mind and then his father when he shows up. And I like this personality split that they've done with Faye and the conclusion and how it's resolved. I think it's actually one of the best written storylines in any video game. Now, even though the setup and the situation is awesome, I gotta say this fight with id's not all that awesome. It's just not. It's basically Xenogears, but I'm gonna give this one a B, even though I love everything else about it. So, True Weltall shows up. Once again, we take on Grahf, our nemesis from the beginning of the game, revealed now to be Khan Wong, fused with Lacan. It is an amazing setup for the fight, and one of the best final fights in the game, in my opinion. The fight itself's not too tough. You're now armed with Xenogears, Faye's restored his fractured mind, Grahf can't handle him. But it's really cool to see it against the fight that you just had with Grahf, where he annihilates Weltall 2 and the rest of the party. So, which led to Ellie's capture. So seeing Faye turn the tables on him is very satisfying. This fight gets a very solid A, low S. All that's left from here are Duos' mini-bosses, should we choose to engage them, Duos himself, and Ouroboros. So, let's go see what those guys are like. Metatron. This guy is as standard as a boss gets. There's nothing special or unique about him. Even his design is a little bit generic. Nothing inspired here. He attacks hard, and that's it. I'd say he's a little bit more of a time waster. I'll give him a C. Sundel. I like Sundel's design as a floating diamond that splits. It reminds me of one of those old screensavers from the 90s. But Sundel has a little bit more game than Metatron. He's a counterattack specialist. He can also heal himself for a random amount. I think the lowest is 1,000. And he'll attack random party members. Doesn't have very high health and not too difficult, so you lay it on him hard and he gets done fairly fast. We'll give Sundel a B. Next is Marlut. This is a complete waste of time. It's kind of an interesting design with the flat structure on the floor, described as a flat phoenix. But all you can really do is drain your fuel. So this is an opponent that Choo Choo could literally beat on her own. Also, if you have tank guards, he can't do anything to you. I mean, honestly, even without all that though, he's very easy. This is a D. Although the attack kind of looks cool. Alright, Harloot. Now of all the mini-bosses, this one is the one that you really want to take out. If you're going to take Duos on, take this one out, because he can do a multitude of negative status effects. I really like his design, a swirling vortex with different lights. Very cool to look at. He can also do his interesting tech where he freezes all but one of your characters in a space-time shift. I think the concept of that really just sounds really cool. The only real drawback to this boss is that he's got low HP, the lowest out of all of them, and his agility or speed in the game is inept. Rico gets multiple turns to attack against him, so this guy is not capable of handling the party. But he is definitely a very worthy mini-boss. It was a lot of fun. His fight earns an A. Almost last up, we have Dues in his final form. The entity that has wrought so much havoc on the world. So the boss design is, I don't know, how do I put this? I'll say that for the 90s and early 2000s RPG final boss forms, all of the ones that Square came up with, this one is, let's just say it's average. I don't hate it, but I really don't love it either. It's certainly very grand, but it just doesn't strike the right chord with me. Now take Alpha Weltall with its demon wings, or the Ophiomorph. Those two look more intimidating and final boss worthy to me, but it's all subjective. Anyway, time to take him down. So if you took the time to take out all the side enemies, and why wouldn't you, there's not a lot to say that goes on here. He has a very similar moveset to the decrepit Dues himself, the Starry Knight and whatnot. And he's got some extra moves from the Angels, but if you're equipped with the anti-angel gear, which you likely should be, this fight's just not too difficult. You'll take him out, none too much to worry about. A bit like Chrono Trigger in that respect, where the final boss is hard, but not very hard. Now, if you don't take out any of the mini-bosses and just head right for them, the fight is much harder as you can expect, but it's still pretty beatable. Now, I really do like the fact that the developers gave you the option to either take on these mini-bosses or take Dues on right away. It adds a little bit of dynamicness to the fight, and for that I'm going to give it a grade up. I was originally going to give this whole encounter a B, but I'm actually going to give it an A. I think that it deserves that, with just being able to show off the whole party, or just going right for the harder fight. So, our last fight, Ouroboros. Final boss, the Miang-looking snake lady. I wish I could say I really like this final encounter since it's the last in Xenogears, but honestly it just feels a little bit out of place. Dues should have been the final boss fight. Ouroboros feels like it's tacked on. So, Faye is speaking with Corellian, the ultimate antagonist of the game. You never face Corellian in direct combat, and that adds to the mystique to his character, your desire to see him brought low. Having him just kind of summon a thing like Grahf summons the worm, I don't know, it just feels a little anticlimactic. I get the look of the boss, but at the same time, it just feels a bit weak to me. And it's I think it takes away from the otherwise brilliant end scene. So, the fight's also extremely easy, so you can't lose. If you just attack every turn, you will win, and win fairly comfortably. So I'll give this final encounter a rank of D. So, a bit of a sad note to end on, but at least we've got that awesome music and that amazing story to soothe our souls with. So it'll be all. If you made it this far, thanks so very much for watching. I know this is a mega long video, and I appreciate it if you made it here. This was supposed to be just a quick project, maybe taking only a few hours, but it just kept growing and growing. And in the middle of it, Mateus Olegzeg? I'm sure I said that wrong. But anyway, this guy actually extracted most of the 3D models for this game, which are the images I used for the tier maker list. Most of them anyway. He's got an awesome website with the map viewer, and he's doing some really cool stuff. So if you haven't, check his thing out. It's pretty awesome. Also, if you want to make your own tier list, like the one I just did, it's public and ready for use anytime, so feel free to have at it. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you guys next time. See ya.